Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's professional development webinar hosted by the Fashion Network in partnership with Shoptimised. Today's topic is all to do with understanding marketplaces, and this is a learning-based event designed to help retailers get the most out of third-party marketplaces. Please note, though, if you are watching this on our YouTube channel at a later date, we'd be grateful if you were to click a like and subscribe. If you happen to be watching the live stream on YouTube, just be mindful that the chat box on that isn't being monitored. So if you do want to interact with us, you'll need to register on our Eventbrite page, and then you'll be able to chat to myself and our panelists. If you are here live in the Zoom room, then there's two options to interact with us. The first one is leave any comments or questions you may have in the chat box. The chat facility is on the toolbar. It's on my screen, it's at the bottom, sometimes it's at the top. The other alternative, if your question is a little bit long-winded, then what I would suggest you do is use the raise your hand feature, and that should allow us to turn your audio feed on. So there's the two options. If you've got a long-winded question, please raise your hand. If it's a short question or comment, pop it in the chat box. We've had over about 200 people signed up for this session. We've got about 50 people through the room so far. That should grow as we start talking. But my first question would be towards you guys out there in the audience. We'd be grateful if you could just pop in the chat box what your job function, the company you work for, and the location. This is just to give our panelists an idea of who they are talking to. So that is the job function, the company, and location. And if you perhaps are a student or whatever, just pop the institution that you're studying at and the topic that you're doing. So that's job function, company, and location. That would be great. Just like I say, just give us an idea who we're talking to, and might actually shape the discussion a little bit. So we've got a few here. We've got non-exec from Ted Baker, East London, account manager, Club L London, Manchester. So obviously Club L London is the company. So there you go, chaps. I don't know if you guys on the panel can see that. If you just click on in the chat box, you'll be able to see where people are coming from. That might be of interest to you. So that is the sort of house rules for now. Without further ado, I just want to introduce our panel. So before I do, though, I have some apologies from Emily Heap, who is the Fashion Acquisition Manager at eBay UK. She was due to speak on the panel, but for a few reasons she couldn't make it, but she does send her apologies. However, we do have a strong lineup. And we have four really good speakers from four slightly different backgrounds. We have John Cave, who's a director at Shoptimised. John's an expert in Google Shopping, amongst other things. Next to him, we have Andrew Banks of Venture Forge. I believe Andrew, expert within Amazon Shopping, amongst other things, and formerly e-commerce manager at Matalan here in the UK. Next to Andrew, we have Simon Taylor, who's a non-executive director at OSPREY's London, also advisor to the board at Clever Mama, and non-exec at Foursquare Group, and formerly partnership director at M Brand Group here in the UK. And then on the end, we have a Theodore, or Ted, as he likes to be known, Ted Hettich, who's marketplace consultant at Ideal Shopping Direct, and formerly at Frugo. So a really good panel, and I'm pretty sure between the four of them, they should be able to answer most of the questions you might have today. And I'm pretty sure they'll answer all the questions that I have. So thank you very much, guys, for your time. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, though, I'm just going to put up a poll if my colleague Scarlett will allow me to have the hosting facilities. And that'll be the next question. So the question is on the poll is, if you could only use one marketplace, what would it be? And I'm going to try and publish that. But while I do, I'm going to ask the first question, and I'm going to bring Simon in on this. Simon, can you just to set the scene, can you just give us your summary, obviously from being in retail for so many years, just outline the pluses and minuses of sort of third-party marketplaces, if you can, from a retail perspective, just as a sort of a scene setter.
Yeah, sure. I think there's always a great debate, a great divide between, people in the business that want to own the customer journey. They want to own the data, because obviously the data is a real collateral in a lot of these relationships with customers. And there's a great argument for that. Sometimes, the cost of customer acquisition through your own D2C operations, depending on, what sort of business you are and how mature you are in terms of your systems and your people, it can kind of make certain businesses think in a kind of different type of way. How can we get to new customers? Because it's obviously all about customer acquisition. We're all in this business to kind of, to sell more, if you like. And if the cost of acquisition is, so high, which is a relatively easy, cost-effective way to channel your product to new customers. So, obviously the answer to that, the remedy to that, is potentially through marketplace. And that can be both domestically and also internationally, really. So for me, a lot of the conversations over the last decade have been in those two areas, really, which is, owning the customer journey on one hand through your own website, or, in some ways handing over that journey to somebody else who potentially already has a lot of active customers in the market that you're looking into. And in summary, that's kind of it for me, really.
Thanks, Simon. And we've got the results of the poll here. So, and it is unsurprisingly Amazon, but not far behind Google Shopping. Any surprises there for anyone, or was that to be expected, John?
It depends on how people view things. I think a lot of people still don't view Google Shopping as a marketplace. I think Google probably still don't view themselves as a marketplace, but it's certainly an area that they want to grow into. So seeing Amazon as number one, I would agree with that. If I could only do one marketplace, then it would be Amazon. But you're still going to be missing out on lots of other marketplaces, depending on what sector you're in. There are probably better marketplaces for your particular brand or product other than Amazon. I guess just on what Simon was just saying there a moment ago, what do you see the biggest drawback of being on a marketplace, Simon?
Well, obviously, there's lots of debates and arguments about, the controlling of the price of the product, the proposition of the product, how it's marketed to eBay or Amazon customers. And obviously, the protection of the brand and brand policing is something that's always a hot topic. I'm kind of constantly always on the fence person when it comes down to that, to be honest, because for me it's a trade-off, if you know what I mean, John.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, sometimes it depends where you are in your journey as a business. Where you start out, whether you're quite established, what period of growth that you're in. So if you're just starting out and you've got very limited marketing budgets, and marketplaces are quite often the best place to start. But quite often we find lots of people going to Google Shopping as the best place to start, or that's what they think is the best place to start. But marketplaces can be a lot better because there's already active and established customers there, and you're plugging directly into that marketplace.
And John,
I would agree with you there too.
Sorry, go on, Ted.
No, I was just saying I would definitely agree with that statement as well too, with being a smaller business and leveraging a marketplace for marketing activities, especially if they're able to disclose that you are the seller and kind of push your name as a bit too. It's definitely a great platform for that.
I'd also just look at almost the flip of what John said there. Is not many people looking at Google Shopping as a marketplace. Not many people look at Amazon as a search engine, but most people that start a shopping journey today start in that search now on Amazon. And of those people that start on Google, the vast majority, dependent on the product sector, will then go on to Amazon to buy that product. So if you're looking, purely the question on that survey, which would be a preferred marketplace, if it was based purely on market share, Amazon across all industries combined has the largest market share in the UK of all marketplaces. It does vary by sector. You look at footwear and Clarks is still dominant in terms of market share, and Amazon is secondary to Clarks, but across all sectors in the UK in the main, Amazon is now the starting point for a search and the biggest destination for a purchase. So it doesn't surprise me that that's the answer that's coming back, because that's where most consumers today are searching and buying the products.
Now, are there any specific marketplaces, like, because obviously a large part of our audience will be from the apparel sector, but are there any specific marketplaces that you would, I don't know whether it's something you do with your clients, John or Simon, maybe from your background, that are perfect to launch or grow a business if it's a fashion apparel business? Can anyone sort of drop a few names of really good niche marketplaces for fashion apparel?
I think the go-to there is probably Zalando in terms of like fashion brands. I noticed that some other from the comments are mentioning Minto. Been seeing a lot of discussions around them too. But yeah, primarily I would say Zalando, ASOS would be like the big fashion powerhouses internationally.
I think I agree. Yeah, Zalando's not really niche. I mean, you're talking many billions of euro turnovers across 20 plus countries. It's really important to work with them if you're looking to get into Europe. However, the beast has changed in the last 6 months because of Brexit. So where it was relatively easy to fulfill to their customers, Brexit has made it a real challenge. Really, it's still worth doing, but if you're a retailer that has your manufacturing in Southeast Asia, you have all of the issues now of probably having to land the stock in Rotterdam and find a way to get the products into the various warehouses across Central and Eastern Europe. So it's harder and it's probably less profitable, but it doesn't mean to say it's not worth doing, basically, would be my view of those guys. They are excellent, super energy. As a retailer working with them, you can get access to their portal, so you can understand where your sell-throughs are coming from in each of the different markets at a kind of departmental level. So you do, if you can make it work logistically, you do get a lot back from them. So I agree with Theodore on that, definitely.
Simon, while you've got the mic there, there's just a question that's come in now. It's quite interesting. Do you think of online department stores like Next, M&S as marketplaces? And if not, what's the difference? I mean, there is quite a lot of, like, over the last 12 months, there's been a huge trend of a lot of retailers now setting up their own marketplaces. I've only learned, this is from my own shame, that I didn't realize Harvey Nichols actually had a marketplace themselves as well. So you must sort of expand on that a bit.
Well, I think that all people like Next, maybe not M&S at the moment, but certainly Next, are moving away from that traditional OTB model where they want to buy. It's more about dropship, or they do actually something called Platform Plus as well, which is like a marketplace in effect, where you're responsible for dispatch to their customer. So, and Next in the UK, yeah, I would say they're an absolutely brilliant business to work with in the UK, and also, I know some brands that work with them, and 20 to 25% of the sales are actually going overseas, even on the Next platform. So it's not just a domestic opportunity; it could be, wider afield, really.
Sorry, Simon, I think that parallel between the department store and the online marketplace is actually quite a good way of looking at the market. What was Debenhams, what was House of Fraser, what is Harvey Nicks on the high street, and what were they famous for 5, 10, 15 years ago? You've only got to look at Next being very clear, taking what was Lipsy & Co, making that into their big consistent marketplace offer, ASOS with a marketplace offer, M&S talking about what is a multi-brand strategy, which is likely to mean your marketplace behind the scenes. Harvey Nicks running what was their in-store concessions on a marketplace model, and brands like Nicole Five, for example, in-store and online through the concession model. I think there's huge parallels. It's the brand leveraging their customer base with smaller brands getting access to that customer, this time via technology rather than via floor space and physical presence.
And then in terms of because obviously our audience varies between well-established retailers and brands, and then smaller retailers and brands, and obviously then there are sort of bigger companies that are launching their D2C proposition. Does it change then in terms of going D2C? Would you use marketplaces to launch your business, and does that change to, if you're an established retailer, how you deal with marketplaces? I mean, Simon, when you were at M Brown Group, obviously you're a well-established retail business. the way you dealt with marketplaces. I think at one stage you said you'd come off marketplaces for a while, but is I guess what I'm saying is marketplaces, should they be seen as something good to launch a business? Or
yeah, I think also there's a point where there has to be a coexistence between marketplace and your own platform. I don't think anybody on any of the panelists would say it should be one or the other. There's like an optimization right in the center, if you like, where the two things have to coexist. I think you mentioned N Brown there. I think, so N Brown had their own direct to customer operations into the US for a decade. And then I come along a couple of years later, and, you start to hear some of the stuff in the US about, I think 70% of all US customers actually buy brands on marketplaces. So between Walmart and Amazon, they've more or less cornered that market. So then you sort of say, well, okay, we're doing our own D2C, but if 70% of US customers are shopping on marketplaces, we need to be there, So for us, it was about operating our own direct to customer, but also trying to find a way to work with Walmart. We were trying to talk to Amazon, but didn't happen for a variety of reasons. But, our go-to people were Walmart. So we did a couple of seasons with those guys. So I don't think it's about one or the other, Dale. I think it's, as I say, coexistence, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And then while we're on that subject, there's a question that's just come in now. Can you suggest a good marketplace for luxury fashion in the US? Anyone want to suggest or recommend one?
I think somebody already answered that with Farfetch.
Oh, did they? Oh, yes, sorry, I missed that.
There's another one that's just been bought. It was a long-standing department store in the US called Lord and Taylor. It's been bought out by a company called New Yorker, I think. And what they've done a Boohoo on it. So, they like Boohoo bought Debenhams. I think New Yorker have bought Lord and Taylor, and it's just going to be like an online marketplace. I think it's going through a lot of sort of changes at the moment, like Debenhams is in the UK. But I think that could be one to look at in the future. Theodore, you'd probably agree, like Lord and Taylor's it's quite a big name in the US for that.
Yeah, it's actually really big. I would agree with Farfetch, though, being like the real go-to or a powerhouse for luxury fashion. For sure.
There's another interesting question here. As many of these marketplaces are broad in scope, what is your view of niche marketplaces?
I think the case there is for Mano Mano, for example, with like B2B. It's really, really kind of come into its own. And it's really, I think, kind of led the way in terms of what other marketplaces are looking to do in terms of like creating a niche and basically finding their way to, I guess, separate themselves from the pack, or being like an Amazon or a Walmart, which is like an everything store. I think another good one would be like a Newegg, which really focused on, in the US, for example, on electronics, and kind of separating itself away from being like an everything store as well too. So there are ones that are really taking in category specific and kind of leading the charge with it.
Yeah, I think you've got the same in the UK with places like Not on the High Street or Etsy that are specialising more in that crafters kind of market. So still huge, quite general propositions, but a great place to go for gifting, homemade, home decoration, home accessories, etc. And they work, even though they're not super niche, they've got more of a specialism and aren't trying to take on the Amazons and the eBays of this world.
And I'm not sure whether this is who can pick this up, but what would you, if you are about to embark on the marketplace journey, then what do you do? Do you just pick off one or two that you can cope with, or do you just, get on some integration software and go for as many as you possibly can? Does anyone want to talk about the best strategy about getting onto marketplaces? You're nodding, Andy.
Yeah, I think we have this question quite a lot with a lot of our clients, and our view on this is very much start with the customer and brand proposition first. Who are you trying to get to? Where can you find those customers, and which marketplaces would work best to that? Once you've got that, then you need to look at your strategy for success on each of those marketplaces. So how you succeed on Amazon versus how you succeed on eBay, Mano, Newegg, completely different algorithms, ways of ranking on their platform, ways of advertising, ways of listing. I think then you can come back to the integrator question. And for me, an integrator is a way of facilitating getting onto marketplaces, but having clarity about where you want to be, why you want to be there, and how you need to succeed. That has to come first, and then the technology is a way of making that happen at speed or at scale, rather than letting the kind of the integration solution drive the outcome.
So pick your fights, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It is important though on the integration side, though, coming from the sales side of being on the sales team into marketplace and looking at, okay, the marketplace wanting to work with clients wanting to work with the marketplace. That was always the main factor on if it went live or not. So I would say having a robust solution would be best, and go for one that's going to give you the most bang for your buck, just to throw those 2 cents in there.
I think I'm now going to completely contradict my answer, and it's been a while since I've worked with Zalando, but my understanding of Zalando from a couple of years ago was very much you had to work with one integrator and one integrator only to get onto that platform. So although my view is still very much pick the marketplace first, then look at integration second, in some instances you will find you have no option. If Zalando is important to you and the same kind of criteria still applies, there is only one integrator that they would work with a couple of years ago. So that does become a different view on things.
I think it was TradeByte, if I'm not mistaken. The TradeByte was the one they purchased, I believe.
Yeah, I think they will work with Channel Advisor as well. I think they've relaxed a little on that now, but I know what you mean. It's quite but the other model they do now is where you deliver the stock like a drop stock model. So there's no need for integration. And they're fulfilling from their 12 or 14 warehouses around Europe. So, and also it's hard for a UK business to, D2C into Germany because obviously, the returns are at about 50 or 60%. So, you're in effect, you're paying them to do the sales really. I mean, it's the model where, you're holding stock in Central and Eastern Europe unless your average selling price is £100 plus, and the cost of the product can take the postage and packaging and the returns. It's a difficult model, really. So luxury. If it's a luxury good, yeah, potentially. You could be quids in even if you're trying to do D2C from the UK. But as I say, if you're in that middle market area in terms of price structure, it's tough, and you probably have to find a way to drop the stock into Europe through Rotterdam, I would say.
There's a couple of comments that might be worth reading out in the chat now. It's from Club L. We were given several options to integrate with Zalando, but TradeByte were heavily pushed. And then the comment beneath that, which I've just lost, is yes, we work with Channel Advisor and Zalando. The next discussion point I want to go on to actually is how you sort of protect yourself on marketplaces, because obviously various different marketplaces offer different things and different commissions, and obviously there's different issues with integration. But how can you best protect yourself on the marketplace from a branding point of view? Who wants to pick that up?
I can certainly look at that from an Amazon perspective, which is where the bulk of our expertise lies. I think first and foremost, the way to protect your brand on any marketplace channel is to have control over the distribution and have a real clear strategy for how your goods will work their way into that channel. So to give you an example of how we've seen it, how it shouldn't be done, is brands that have sold their product into wholesale and retail, those goods then go further down the supply chain, and you end up with many resellers selling on Amazon with people fighting over price, badly controlled listings, and the brand, not just from a price point of view, but from a brand point of view, very quickly gets devalued and undermined on that platform. So first of all, by controlling that distribution and having a real clear strategy for who can sell your brand on which platform, and making sure you do that in quite obviously in a legally appropriate way, that's kind of step one of having that control. Then specifically on Amazon, there are great tools like Amazon Brand Registry. So providing you have a trademark and copyright owner on your product and your brand, you get access to a suite of tools that will give you greater control over the listings, greater control over resellers on the platform, ability to protect yourself from fraudulent goods and low quality goods that are coming in and hanging off the back of your brand, and ultimately better control and puts you in the driving seat of your selling journey and customer experience within the Amazon platform. So there's a lot you can do, but for me, it's absolutely got to start with just a really clear strategy and control of the distribution of your goods into the marketplace platforms, and in particular, Amazon and eBay.
So if we, Andrew, if we put a slightly different spin on that, so that's kind of from a brand, and you can obviously control brand registry. What's the danger of being a retailer? Because obviously you're selling other people's products at that point. What's the long-term danger, I guess, of people like Amazon, which we've seen more and more happening now in certain verticals, either using the data to work out which products are selling really well that they can sell directly, or which products that they can manufacture, kind of like batteries. The Amazon Basics battery is the best-selling battery in the world now. Is what risk is there for retailers selling on marketplaces?
I think there's probably two sides to that I'll take on, John. One is kind of will Amazon kind of create an alternative product, and taking your batteries example, I think it's a real live risk, but in the grand scheme of the many millions of products being sold on Amazon's platform, that happens very few and far between. I think where I do see quite a significant risk for retailers in particular that they need to be really aware of is retailers that are selling on the Amazon platform and questioning what value are they adding to that brand. So if you think about a retailer that has a store presence, they have footfall, they have a brand, they're generating customers to come and buy, let's just call it Nike or Adidas trainers, and they're adding value in that customer journey, in that supply chain. When you then think about that in a marketplace world, and you've got 15 independent shops listing Nike and Adidas as trainers on Amazon, the people that are asking the question are two people. It's Amazon looking at, why don't I just deal directly with Nike or Adidas and bring more margin into this for all of us? And the biggest change we've seen as a business working with brands is the number of brands that are now willing post-COVID to say, we in the past wouldn't have sold directly on Amazon or marketplaces, but we now need to do and want to do. We want to own that journey and control that journey and deepen our margin because we're not seeing the retailers adding as much value in the marketplace ecosystem. And by this in particular, third-party marketplaces like Amazon over your Next or your M&S and your Harvey Nichols examples, but they are questioning what value retailers add and are much more willing now as a brand to cut the retailer out of the mix on those channels and deal direct with either the consumer on an Amazon seller basis, for example, or with Amazon on an Amazon vendor basis and look to deepen the margin. I think that is a real risk for retailers.
Yeah. Are you anticipating that retailers, well, it's a couple of outcomes for that, isn't it? Obviously, it's detrimental to retailers. Should they pull off marketplaces such as Amazon, or should the bigger sort of independent retailers set up their own marketplaces? I mean, what would you anticipate happening?
I think from a marketplace and an Amazon perspective, again, I think all I can see happening there is the brands themselves taking more of that control and working directly with Amazon or through Amazon directly with the consumer. Where does the opportunity lie then for the general retailer, the retailer of their products? I think you've got to come back to good old-fashioned retail values. Why do I exist? What value do I add in the supply chain? That comes back to me, to owning the customer, having a customer that comes to you uniquely to buy some product or a curated collection of products. And perhaps that does open up a marketplace opportunity for those more independent retail offerings. But I think that brings a huge change in their business model. How do they then attract customers at scale? How do they build that marketplace proposition? And it's a huge change for them. I think for me, more of a D2C offer would be more appropriate for them than trying to build a marketplace offer.
I feel the question, what's the point of retail, has coming up, but I think that's another session really. Next discussion point I wanted to go on to is I want to talk a little bit about, and John, I think we've had some conversations about this off camera, about whether certain brands can build their business without actually having a standalone store. Do you still feel that is a way you can run a business, or do you think that both brands need a D2C and marketplace offering?
Yeah, I still think they need both. I mean, even Google Shopping at some point in the future will allow you, well, certainly in America and France at the moment, will allow you to buy without ever visiting somebody's website directly. But your website and your store is where you build your brand and your brand values and your experience. And there's so many different things you can do with your website that you can't do on marketplace. We know Amazon's got their stores, which some are good, most probably aren't. And I think that's probably to do with everybody sets one up, forgets about it, and then it goes out of date very, very quickly. So it's going to be the same with what we've seen with a twist on the high street. With some retailers have now started designing their stores in a way that it builds an experience. It's not about turning over lots and lots of revenue, making lots and lots of sales. And that might be more of the case as things go on. But we'll always have a need there'll always be people competing from an SEO point of view. There'll always be people competing from PPC. There'll always be a market for that. So yeah, I still very much think they'll need both, but they both could be very, very different and do very, very different things.
Your suggestion is obviously what you're suggesting is the D2C option being more of a marketing tool, you think, rather than a.
It could be. I mean, it's going to depend on the products that you sell and buy. As an example, I've recently been considering buying a new car and be incredibly frustrated by how poor the experience is on most of the websites that are selling cars. They could be a lot better. They could improve that experience immensely. We could improve experiences through fashion and apparel on websites immensely. There are people sort of innovating. VictoriaBeckham.com has just started. I think it's more of a personal shopper experience that you can get on that website now. You can do different things that you can control that you're not going to be able to ever do on a marketplace. You on Amazon, you're only going to be able to do what you can do with Amazon. There'll be other marketplaces that want to build more of that experience into it. I think certainly what Ted probably does in his line of work now would be a lot more blended between being a marketplace, but also building an experience for a retailer and a brand that would work a lot better for people. But it's going to depend on what part of the journey you are.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to just elaborate a bit on that, Ted? Because I understand you've got two offerings, haven't you? You've obviously got Let's Be on the Marketplace offering, and that's it. But then also you can utilize the shopping channel as well. But obviously,
it's really interesting with Ideal. Actually, yeah, you're 100% right. Especially because we are a TV shopping channel as well too. So you have like three different propositions actually. So you have the TV offering, which is more of like an advertising relationship where you go on, you showcase a product. Some of the stuff you're seeing now, especially with influencers, is kind of like the traditional TV approach. And then you have a typical supplier relationship on Ideal, which is working with Ideal. Ideal stores your goods in the warehouse in Peterborough and then delivers direct to consumer. And then there's a dropship model as well there too. And then what I was brought on to do was to actually create a third-party marketplace offering. And similar to Amazon, you allow third parties to come on board, take advantage of the organic traffic that's coming to the Ideal property, an Ideal world, and then we're offering that direct to consumer as well. But they would take all the legal responsibility for it. So there's really like a couple streams that are going through the Ideal world now, and it is. Not to kind of go off topic or go off the subject too, but from Ideal's point of view as well, it's kind of finding your soul in that. So are we a marketplace? Have we become a store? Are we still traditional TV? What are we seeing is going to happen for the next 10 years? And it is a bit of a soul searching on that side there too.
Interesting you should say that actually, Ted, because we did a webinar a couple of months ago. It was an influencer marketing webinar. Actually, it was about how to build your career as an influencer, I think. And one of the talent managers at one of the UK's biggest influence agencies says that she can see that the future of influencer marketing is basically them becoming mini TV channels, effectively, and and the whole live commerce thing. So that's obviously another interesting progression.
Yeah, you could actually see it now. It's starting to go from this like grainy, gritty type. I'm in my bedroom holding up a purse to guys actually doing like almost like a studio style like showcase of the product. So it's definitely, I think it's naturally evolving away from that like gritty, more real experience and going towards a produced segment.
We're getting a couple of questions about internationalization, which I think is a good time to bring Simon back in here. There's one question here from Emma. Can you suggest international marketplaces for mid to high fashion and apparel brands along the lines of Atelier and Wolf and Badger?
I mean, depends which markets, I suppose, but there's a lot of movement and investment on global fashion brands, which is the mothership to Iconic in Australia, Zalora, Daffodil in South America, and La Moda in Russia. I think they're always looking for kind of those sort of brands that you just mentioned, especially maybe on the Australian and Southeast Asian platforms. Middle East, it's a tricky one really. I don't know if any of the guys have got any experience there, but I'm, I did have an association with a business called VogaCloset.com, which is a really interesting business because you're actually dealing with a UK entity. So the founder of the business is from the Middle East, but is living and domiciled here. And all the brand has to do is deliver the products to Heathrow Airport. So if it's a UK business, all you have to do is deliver the product within 24 hours to the facility at Heathrow. And then within, I think it's 3 to 5 working days, that product will be delivered directly to the customer's door in one of 7 different Middle Eastern countries. So Middle East, for me, that's something that's a little bit different, because the traditional model at the moment is, send your stock to Dubai, it gets caught in customs for 2 or 3 months. Once you get it released from customs, it takes another 4 weeks to get the product shot and then actually get it to put onto some of the other platforms. So if you want that unique experience for the customer, so they can see relevant, up-to-date product that you have on your own platform, probably somebody like Voga Closet would be a good option for you.
So what you're saying there, correct me if I'm wrong, is obviously in this case, when you're trying to internationalize your brand, marketplace can be an absolutely vital part of your globalization strategy then.
Well, for me, marketplace is, it takes you away from that old idea of wholesaling and third-party e-com. Marketplace is like where you can give the customer your most relevant, up-to-date product. When you start talking about international and you're so far away from the customer, there's a lot of considerations there in terms of cost and red tape and also returns. So if you can find a model like the Voga Closet model, or Zalando have a similar model where they have a distribution center in Malaysia, and that distribution center services the 7 or 8 different countries that the Zalando platform actually services. So it's not easy to go international on a marketplace. You need to think a little bit out of the box, really, because if you can't get the stock to the customer, it's a bit of a problem, really.
There's someone called Dossier has just asked, can you put the names of those marketplaces that you've just mentioned in the chat? Is that okay?
Yeah, is that because of my accent?
Maybe it could be a memory thing, perhaps.
Right. Okay. See if I can work this out.
While you're doing that, I'd just like to ask the rest of the panel, sort of like, what would your suggestion be? What sort of resources would you suggest to any of your clients, partners, or businesses that you're working with? What are the key resources that a business should have in place before they go onto a marketplace? Ted?
I would say definitely with the plugin, or with a channel partner that's going to help you get on to the marketplace that you're specifically targeting, or markets that you're specifically targeting is paramount. And then I would say after that would be any kind of shipping or logistics solutions. So making sure you have a 3PL or some kind of shipping solution in play that's going to support you in the markets that you want to be in. So I'd say with those two, that would be 1 and then 2.
Andrew, what would you suggest? Do you want to build on that a little bit? What's the key things any brand or business needs to have before they embark on? Because the more and more I talk to you guys, the more and more I realize this is not like an easy thing to just add on to your business. Yeah,
that's probably where I was going to start with the answer, Dale. I think I would take a good look at your e-commerce team and look at the structure that you've got there, because a marketplace is effectively just another website retailing your products. So you've got to think about content. So you've got photography. Are you going to do channel specific imagery for Amazon in particular? That's super important. You've got different content requirements. On your own website, you might have a title and a description. On Amazon, it's title, bullet points, description, backing keywords. You need a content resource around that. You've then got customer service. Who's going to handle the where is my order kind of queries? Does the marketplace handle that, or do you still need to handle that? Who's going to handle the business to business relationship? Who's going to be your commercial contact between your organization and the marketplace? And then you've got all the typical customer service, logistical, returns requirements to think about. If they're not being handled by the marketplace, how are you going to handle that internally? So I'm not saying it needs to be a mirror in terms of size and team, but if you're looking at roles and structure, every single role you've got in a standard e-com operation does need to exist in some capacity or some size in a marketplace role that's running alongside that as well.
Okay. So it's not a bolt-on, basically, which,
I think that's often a misconception, is actually launching on a marketplace. I think this is where I kind of hit on the whole integrator piece earlier. There's often a misconception that putting an integrator in place to move your e-com data into a marketplace is kind of all you need, with a bit more around it to launch a marketplace type business. And in reality, there's a lot more involved, and to resource it properly from the outset will give you typically much better success.
It's difficult enough just to establish. Yes, it's difficult enough just establishing a commercial contact between you and Amazon to begin. That's really difficult in itself. That's where you kind of need to rely on companies like VentureForge and things like that, because it's really hard to do. You can't just join Amazon and expect someone's going to be there to hold your hand. That doesn't exist.
It's not, Amazon very much on the seller side of things is a self-service type business, and we've had clients where a listing has gone down for one very simple thing, and that's resulted in 25 support tickets between our team and Amazon support to try and get that one product back online. Run that across a fashion business that's carrying 10, 15, 20,000 SKUs and trying to take that into a marketplace. When it goes well, it's okay. When it doesn't go well, the amount of resource and time you need to put behind that can be quite significant.
Just got another question coming here from Nika. How do you make a brand more impactful in a marketplace via other brands or via other brand? I'm assuming it depends on the marketplace. Who would like to pick that up?
I think you have to work with the marketplace pretty closely, and like you said, if it's a really like brand focused marketplace, like a Zalando, for example, it might be hard to make a lot of noise unless you have a lot of spend, or if they offer any kind of like PPC on the platform, or they allow you to showcase anything with like buying real estate on the marketplace as well too. So I think it's exactly what you said. It depends on what marketplace you're going on and what kind of things they offer.
Anybody else want to add to that?
I think just to build on that from Ted, to bring that into the Amazon world, you've got 15, 20 different levers you can pull for growth. You can have great listings. You've got to outcompete the competition in terms of your listings quality. Advertising, who can spend the most and can maximize the advertising opportunity, that will give you standout. But there's all kinds of additional schemes. So you've got things like Amazon Launchpad, which is great for startup brands to gain, where Ted talked about buying additional exposure. If you get access onto the Launchpad or the Launchpad Pro scheme, you can gain homepage level exposure. So it's really about, coming right back to where Ted started. His answer was understanding the marketplace and pulling the levers that you can better than the competition that you're up against, and just understanding how to do that inside each of the relevant platforms.
Brilliant. It's just a question coming in from Emma, really. I don't know if anyone's read that. I'm not sure I want to ask you guys that, because I think that might be connected to a certain a certain situation in Europe. I'll read it out. Is there a way to send high value items into the EU so it goes B2B into the EU and then B2C within the EU, almost like repackaging forwarding service? I think that's one for our shipping and logistic clients, isn't it? I don't know if Sai would like to say anything on that or not.
Is that not what Zalando do? Potentially, that's how I'm reading that, depending on which model you work with them. But yeah, if it's logistics, keep me away from it.
Yeah. Well, Emma, if you've got time afterwards, feel free to join us in the networking session. By the way, we're having a bit of a networking session where you can get to meet us, myself and the rest of the panel face to face. Scarlett's already shared the link in the chat box. And if not, Emma and I can possibly introduce you to somebody who might be able to help with that. So if you just email us, I can do an introduction to somebody who's got a bit more knowledge on that. So my next question, I'm going to bring John back in on this now. So John, I want to just talk a little bit about building data from third-party marketplaces. We were talking the other day about marketplaces being just a sales acquisition platform and possibly a branding exercise, but are there opportunities to build data from certain marketplaces? And obviously, it's worth mentioning the whole GDPR thing on this. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that, what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I think that's always been one of the greatest challenges, especially around Amazon, that they're not your customers. They're Amazon's customers. You're connected. You can sell to them, but you don't get this. Well, apart from depending whether you're a vendor or seller and you're shipping them the actual product, you don't really get to know who they are. You don't get to market to them again. But that's not to say that should put you off. Now, I think when we talk about Amazon specifically in the EU, it's 54% of all the products get sold through Amazon. So you definitely want to miss out on them. On the GDPR point, we kind of celebrated that slightly in the office last week. We'll see where it goes. That now seems to be getting rolled back, and that doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue for us going forwards. But I guess it's a good question to throw over to the guys. There are probably certain ways that you can still find out who your customers are when you're buying through Amazon or other marketplaces by doing certain practices. But depending on that marketplace, they do tend to clamp down on those certain things quite well. And in other instances, when you do it, it's a big risk, because if you get caught, you don't just get a friendly email suggesting you no longer do it, you'll get a suspension.
I think this is where the smaller medium range marketplaces can come in handy. So let's say you're working on like an Amazon or an eBay or something like that, they won't give you any information. But if you do work with some of the smaller ones, they will. And they'll give it to you in an anonymized way. Like the two marketplaces that I've worked for, we really want to build the relationship with the client. And if you are a heavy hitter, that will open up more depending on how much you deliver to the bottom line. And I think you can really leverage that and work with the marketplace too. So I think it's about forming a good contact there, and you can take that data and then use it on some of the channels that, let's say, aren't as open. But you can definitely get a lot to help you and work with you if you work with enough, essentially.
Andrew or Simon, do you want to add anything to this topic about how you acquire data from, or if you can acquire data, and if so, how?
I'd say for me, it's a mindset thing. If you're looking at Amazon as a data acquisition channel, or how can I acquire customer data, you're looking at it through the wrong lens. You know, Amazon is very much a sales channel more than it is a marketing or a customer data acquisition channel. So I think with that in mind, you've got to think about your strategy and why you're using these marketplaces. And is that appropriate for your business? There are ways and means to do it. As John's quite rightly said, you cross the line on Amazon, you're off the platform. Whether you can technically do it or not, you're off the platform if you get caught doing that. So very much look at it as it's not a customer data acquisition channel, but it is a fantastic customer acquisition channel to bring new customers to your brand rather than capturing the data. I think if you accept and embrace that and view the marketplace in that light, it changes the view on the channel. Amazon can't be about customer data acquisition.
John, it might be a good stage to sort of mention, obviously, the Google Shopping aspect of it. I mean, obviously, this is where Google Shopping comes into its own, isn't it? You know, so do you want to just talk us a little bit about Google Shopping v marketplaces? And
yeah, I think the way Google want to go, and if we look at everything they're doing, everything they're testing, the direction of travel, without listening to the things that they're saying. Obviously, Google see Amazon as a huge threat and a huge competitor. They look at Amazon and they want what Amazon's got. Going full circle back to something Andy said at the beginning, we said that Amazon wasn't a marketplace, but was a search engine, and categorized it that way. Is Amazon then the second biggest or even the first biggest search engine in the UK? And how does that kind of push the difference between Google or YouTube, for that matter? Google, what we've seen certain things put in the merchant center at the moment that will allow you to sell almost in a seller central kind of way, where a transaction will take place in Google Shopping without anybody even leaving the website. Leaving Google Shopping to go to your website. We're also seeing little controls being added in the merchant center where people can automatically change their pricing based on their competitors' pricing, by building in their margins so they can see how low they want to go. So they're already preparing to have that race to the bottom. Now, if you wind back far enough, I remember a time with Amazon where you could leave Amazon via a paid ad and go to somebody's website and purchase as well. I think something like that might be coming back in terms of a remarketing point of view. But it's all going to get a little bit murky, because when we look at Google Shopping, most people consider it as just one thing. It's those shopping ads that we see. But Google Shopping is actually two entities. So you've got Google Shopping, which lives on the shopping tab, which is not your main search results. And that's what will start to become a marketplace. And then you'll still have your shopping ads that live in your search engine result pages. And they'll be classed as shopping ads. Most people just call them both Google Shopping. but they're completely different. And they're all watching each other all the time, these four horsemen. Google are watching Amazon and Amazon's growth. Amazon are watching Google. Interestingly, Amazon are probably one of Google's biggest customers. But if you try to go buy a Google smart speaker on Amazon, you can find the instructions to them, but you can't find the actual product. So on the flip side, Google are not allowed to be one of Amazon's customers. So there's definitely going to be a merging of the two. Google want to have their product that is going to rival Amazon. Whether Amazon want to have their product that's going to rival Google and everything else that they do remains to be seen. Andy, you've probably got a very good view of this from your customers as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything you said there, John. I think if you look at the concept of where does a customer start a search to buy something, they're starting that today on Google and on Amazon, but you've got two very, very different business models historically. One's about selling products, one's about selling advertising clicks, but they're slowly, maybe not even that slowly, coming into each other's world. Amazon are massively ramping up their advertising capability, stealing ad dollars from Google's business where it's been historically spent, and Google are going to come back in and fight for that space, and they're starting to make those steps already. I don't think the two will end up in the middle with very, very similar business models. And I think what you'll find is Amazon will remain a very solid retailer with amazing advertising and search technology on top, and Google will still remain very much a search engine, but with great shopping technology on top. I'm quite interested in seeing how quickly that materializes, because the two worlds are coming together very, very quickly, but there's still a lot of ground to make up there.
Have you seen any traction with?
Sorry
about that. Have you seen any traction with any of the Google free listings? So you know how Google opened it up, basically Google Shopping in the United States, I think first, and now in Europe, by just offering it for free for smaller guys during the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah,
Has
of course.
Seen any traction there?
It depends on the sector. So the free listings can be anything from 1% of your overall traffic to about 15% of your overall traffic. That's not changing. It's not going up. Google will still have to do a better job of trying to drive people within the shopping tab, because still a lot of consumers will search on Google. They get the shopping ads across the top, and they're still sucked into that rather than being sent over to the shopping tab. So Google will have to kind of control and pivot that journey to a degree. But the free, we all know free clicks will only be free for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
You know, the great digital drug dealer will get you all hooked, because that's where Frugal started originally, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It was totally free, and then all of a sudden it was paid for, but so cheap that you could still drive incredibly high ROIs. So we're kind of repeating history a little bit with what we're doing, but Google need to work out a way of driving more traffic into that shopping area than just in their SERPs at the moment.
There's a comment just come in now. The problem with free listings is it's very difficult to measure conversions. Clicks yes, conversions no. So
it doesn't have to be. It absolutely doesn't have to be. No, I think what most people do is they send the same product feed into both elements, whereas they can separate their product feeds out. They can send one into free listings, one into paid listings. If you're sending it free, you can UTM track it so you can see the impact of Google Analytics. Or there's an attribute in your product feed called the Google Ads Redirect. So you can put a UTM on that link only. So when it's paid for, it fires in through that UTM. And if it's not paid for, it fires in for another. You can absolutely do it.
Camilla, I know you're asking a few more comments here, but if you want to join us afterwards, you can have a quick chat with John in the breakout session after this if you want. If not, I can introduce you to over email if you like. John, I just don't want to, because it's sort of coming towards the end of the session now, I did want to ask you though, in terms of like, if you were e-commerce manager for X brand, would you put more of your resources towards Google Shopping or more of your resources to third-party marketplaces, or would it be 50-50, or what would you think?
Depends how much my boss gives us to spend.
If it was a choice.
Yeah. When people come to us who are brand new from doing Google ads for the past 16 years, the first thing you've always got to say to them with brand new and they've got a certain budget is you've got to buy data. So you've got to spend money to work out what works. Whereas if you're going onto a marketplace and you can afford whatever the commission is someone's going to take from that sale, I would, having even worked in Google Shopping, Google Ads the past 15 years, knowing what I know now, I'd probably go marketplace first, because that would allow me to start earning some money, and then I can take that profit and take that back over to Google Shopping and invest that, and then I can start learning what's going to work over there, and then start growing them up. If my boss turned around and said, we've got all kinds of money, John, you just go for it, then I would go for both. And it depends, it depends where you want to start. It depends on the type of product. But if I was being frugal, I'd go marketplace first.
Anybody else want to add to that?
I'd agree with John. Marketplace first, because it's a cash generative sales channel. Your typical Amazon business nets down to about 10 to 20% net of all costs. And if you get the advertising cost of sale in a good place, which isn't too challenging with a pretty standard product category, advertising money can become very, very self-funding very quickly and doesn't actually require cash to grow the business from that point onwards. So for me, it would be marketplace first, generate the cash, build something else second.
I would agree with that too,
and you find out
what. Oh, sorry about that again. I think I'm a bit of a delay, probably from Germany, but I would agree with that. I would agree with that too, especially what Andy said too, because you find out what products are selling, and you can focus on your inventory and really, really double down on the stuff that people want. So I'd say you could leverage the marketplace using its marketing spend to find out what products in your environment work the best.
Simon, what would you prioritize, or would you?
Yeah, I'm clearly, being a partnerships director in the past, clearly I'd prioritize marketplaces. That's my kind of bread and butter, if you like. But just linked into all of the stuff the guys were saying, for me, there's no such thing as a three dinner. I've been brought up to be taught that, really, in all walks of life. And interestingly, I've been working with a company in not in the fashion sector, and they've become one of these businesses that's gone from kind of like 0 to 12 million in the last 7 years. It started in a garage, then it moved to a warehouse, then it moved to 3 warehouses. The challenge with that is where you're not having kind of a coexistence between, your own platform or an eBay or an Amazon offer is, this particular business, the margins, because basically this business is just an eBay and an Amazon seller. The margins and kind of that business can actually generate are so low, and it's all to do with the additional Amazon marketing services that come as part and parcel of, working with someone like eBay or Amazon. So I think for me, it's just about balance, really. It's getting a balance of the two. And I understand, I agree with what John says, and Andy says about, from the marketplace, it is cash generating. And if you can reinvest that cash at a later date into kind of like Google ads or what have you, then yeah, definitely that's kind of the approach I take as well.
Thanks, guys. Well, we're coming towards the end of the session. I might get you to do your last summations, if that's okay. And just, but before I do, I just want to remind everybody there's a little link in the chat box if you want to come and have a quick bit of a networking session after this. You're more than welcome to join us, and you can sort of exchange contact details and all that sort of stuff. I want to also thank Shoptimised for supporting today's event. So if anybody has any Google shopping requirements or product optimization issues, then please get in touch with either us or Shoptimised directly. We'll put the slide up at the end of the thingy. But I just want to go around the panel and just get your last thoughts on what you think the next 6 to 12 months looks like in this space in terms of marketplaces. Ted, can I come to you first?
Yeah. I think we kind of touched on it earlier in the discussion too. I think a lot of retailers will be leveraging and utilizing their own traffic to create some kind of marketplace proposition. We'll start to see that more and more. And I think post 12 months, we'll probably see even a bit of consolidation going on with more, because basically everyone will fan out towards marketplace. And then we'll see a lot of businesses start to capitalize on it and start to consolidate.
Andrew?
I think I just echo what Ted has said there. I think you're going to see this huge land grab for more and more businesses wanting to introduce an endless aisle concept to their existing customer base. At the end of the day, you've got 2 ways of building an e-com business: sell more stuff to your existing customers or bring more customers in to sell your existing stuff to. And most brands at the moment seem to be going through this land grab of more product on sites to the existing customer base that trusts them. And I think that will continue until that point of consolidation.
Brilliant. Simon?
Yeah, I completely agree with the guys. I think, especially if you've been a physical retailer and you've been quite badly damaged by the events of COVID, having to close your physical locations. I think there's brands on the high street that have never considered with any kind of serious notion to get involved heavily and invest in marketplaces. But, a lot of the conversations I'm having at the moment at sort of board level and senior leadership team level are all kind of about moving that way. So I think we'll continue to see a shift towards marketplaces.
And John, you can have final words if you like.
Yeah,
I know you're looking forward to the Clash of the Titans, but what else do you anticipate happening?
Yeah, I think clearly Amazon will go bust. No, I agree with everything the guys say. There's just all these marketplaces are unavoidable. More and more people will need to join. I think more and more marketplaces will start popping up in terms of niche marketplaces. We'll see more of these hybrid models where existing department stores and websites like that will start operating those marketplace elements as well. It will get a little bit fragmented, but you can only see these areas just continuing to grow and grow.
Brilliant. Appreciate that. And like I say, if anybody in the audience would like to join us, we'll be in a separate room. There's the link for about 20 minutes. You have a chance to sort of meet us, have a sort of informal chat with the panelists face to face. All I would like to ask you, the panelists, to do, if you don't mind, is when we finish, just switch off your camera and audio and just click on that link, and I'll see you in a few more minutes in the other room, if that's okay. So appreciate your time, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Really informative, and I'll see you shortly. Bye-bye.